Good to go.
Hello. Oh, I was looking for the little Facebook sign up there. We're not on Facebook. We are on Zoom, and welcome everybody who's here. I'm Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, and this is the first of three webinars, I guess, that we're doing about the Plan 2040 at home, the new tool for people to comment on the first cut that our staff has put together on the general development plan. It's not the complete plan. I hope some of you have been to the site and looked at it. You're going to get a tour of the site today. But it does include probably the most controversial parts of the plan, which is dividing the county up into areas that identify our interesting categories this time. Our neighborhood preservation areas, our rural and ag areas, our peninsulas. So most of the county is in those three categories, but also corridor management, critical economic centers, and town centers. And then in addition to that, specific applications from landowners for changes in land use. So these are not rezonings, but it's the information that will be looked at next in regional plans, and then eventually in comprehensive rezoning, region by region around the county. So this is really important information that's on this site that you're going to be reviewing, and then you have the opportunity to comment on. And I do want to say, this is not the public comment kind of a meeting. This is really more of a training session, and people will have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments, but the real comment that are going to be recorded are the ones that you do online. So I want to congratulate the staff for putting together this tool, and I'm going to introduce them, and they're going to go through it all. But they were faced with the pandemic, and the part of the general development plan process that really required a lot of public input, and had to figure out a way of doing it. In the past, obviously, the people who comment are the people who have the ability to show up at meetings, usually evening meetings in their communities, and those numbers are pretty low. And so this tool is creating a system where there's going to be way more public input into this general development plan than has ever been in any past plan. I mean, we already did, as you know, 17 meetings around the county. That was followed by 8 meetings before I was even elected around the county, and then of course we have our Citizens Advisory Committee that has been working with the planning department, the long range planning staff on this, and once this gets done, this process, and you've made your comments, then it goes to the Planning Advisory Council, back to the CAC. They do a real draft. You'll have 30 days to comment on that draft. And then by the end of the year, it all goes to the County Council. And that's the group of people who actually approve the final general development plan. And then that's followed by regional planning. So we'll never be done with planning in this county. We'll never be done with public input. But I do want to just note, before we get into the details of this, this tool and what we're doing tonight, that this isn't all that Anne Arundel County is doing on trying to get a better handle on how growth and development happens in our county. The general approach that I'm certainly trying to take, and I think most people in planning are trying to take, and most county residents support, is just basic concept of smart growth, where we can preserve open space, and the development that takes place as much as possible takes place in areas where we can do mixed use, where people can live, work, and play, where we're getting cars off of the roads, and managing traffic and all of the things, and making sure that adequate public facility guidelines are being met. That work, I believe, hasn't been done well enough in this county in the past. And we're making changes every day, every week, every month, both in OPZ and in inspections and permits, and how all of that's done. You know, you've seen the press conferences about the new green notices and blue notices at INP, ending modifications that don't improve the environmental situation at a development site. It's been rough for some developers. There have been a number of projects that probably would have gone through in the past and that some of which have been denied completely. Others are been pushed back and they have to redo them. You know, the Enclave at Crofton, the Monticello properties by Saltworks Creek, where they took down the specimen trees. Somebody took down the specimen trees before even putting their application in. I mean, that kind of behavior in Arundel County, we're not standing for anymore. The Marsh Landing was denied for the stormwater not being adequate. Glebe Heights was pushed back down the Mayo Peninsula. These are all projects that were pushed back simply because we applied the laws as they exist in the county, where before modifications were being granted to allow development to take place that really wasn't consistent with our previous general development plan. So I feel like we're making progress on all of that. As we go, we're also changing laws. We got our forest conservation bill passed. We've done some housing legislation, both workforce housing and fair housing, and we're working on a third piece, a moderately priced dwelling unit requirement for new development, and that was important work. ACLU and others were preparing to sue Anne Arundel County. Now we're considered a leader where we were doing not enough on affordable housing. And in addition to what we're doing to try to limit development in the county, we really want to focus our efforts on redevelopment. You're going to see Councilwoman Pickard is going to be introducing legislation soon that is going to make it easier to do revitalization, particularly in Glen Burnie. And that's a direction that we feel is important to go as well. So the smart growth efforts around the county, we're hoping that this general development plan drives that process. But you have the opportunity in your regional planning areas to weigh in. You can weigh in on specific land use change designations. And I hope that you think that we're actually making progress. We can never please everybody on these things. But as I'm often reminded, people do have the right to develop their land within the guidelines that are set by the law. And so not everything can be stopped just because some of us may not like it. But this is all about the standards, the principles, the basic concepts that are going to drive land use in Anne Arundel County. So I don't think there's really anything more important that we could be talking about tonight. So I am going to stop talking, and I'm gonna pass things on. You're going to be hearing we have with us Christina Pompa from Planning, who's the Deputy Planning Officer, Cindy Carrier from Long Range Planning, Michael Stringer, and Desiree Williams, all from Long Range Planning, who've been working really hard on this effort, and they're going to be walking us through it. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Layla Jones, who does our community engagement and constituent services out of our office for the area that we're talking about tonight, which is planning areas regions 1, 2, and 3. So tell us what we're going to do, Layla.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Pittman mentioned, my name is Layla Jones, and I'm a resident of Glen Burnie, and I cover the area of Glen Burnie, the north part and the west part of the county. Today's webinar will cover what the GDP is, why it's important, why we need participation from all members of our community. There will also be a tutorial on how to use the interactive website to submit your comments on the GDP, which stands for General Development Plan, in case anyone forgot. At the end of the tutorial, we'll have a Q&A session where participants will be able to ask any questions about the functionality of the interactive website and specific questions on how to use it. You simply click, if you notice below on your screen, you simply click the raise hand button on the bottom of your screen and wait for me to call your name during the Q&A session. You'll then be able to unmute yourself and you will have 1 minute to ask your question. You are also free to leave a question in the chat box, and you may do so at any time during the presentation, and we will try to answer it throughout the presentation. This webinar is being recorded to share across the county's platform. With that said, I'll hand it back over to Planning and Zoning and to Michael. Thank you.
Before they jump in, Layla, there was one little piece that I failed to mention, and I may miss some people when I do this, but we have with us the chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee on this call, Elizabeth Rosberg, and then we also have 2 of our county council women who represent this area, both Councilwoman Sarah Lacey and Council Chairwoman Allison Pickard. And then we also have Delegate Sandy Bartlett, who represents a lot of this area. So welcome all of you. And there may be others that I've missed, but those are the ones that were pre-registered. So sorry, Michael, you're on now.
That's okay, Executive. So thank you everyone for making the time. And really appreciate the effort of citizens that have gone into this planning process to date and your commitment to continuing to be involved as this comes together into a cohesive plan. As County Executive mentioned, we've been trying to figure out how most effectively to engage the community during this time of social distancing. So this webinar is one example of that. And we do try to find ways to make this as interactive as we can. So Layla, if I can cue you up, we actually want to ask, before I start to talk about the general development plan, we have a simple polling question. If you do the polling question number 2 about, oh, we're gonna do number 1 first. So to get you used to doing polls, real quick, click on this. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? You just need to hover over with your mouse, click on a button, then Layla will share the results with us in a moment.
What if our favorite one's not listed?
This is always a challenge, County Executive. We only have so many choices in life, and we have to pick the best with what we're given.
All right.
I raised 2 kids, so I say that daily. Okay, we've got a good spread here. Good diversity of opinion, which is what we want to hear when we see groups like this. Looks like we've got a lot of chocolate, mint, and salted caramel fans. A few others coming up in the back end with Rocky Road, strawberry, and cookies and cream. Good. One thing we try to find is with this technology, ways that we can be more interactive and engaging. One of the potential opportunities with this is to be able to engage more people. It's challenging, of course, to get out to a community meeting in the evening. Folks have a lot of commitments. There are folks who work in the evenings, challenges with childcare for people who have kids. Folks with disabilities have a hard time getting out to a meeting. So one of the things we're trying to do by moving all this material online is to be able to expand that capacity. Now, we know there are limitations there as well, right? Through the school systems, we learned really, shine a really bright light on the limitations of people who have Wi-Fi access or not have Wi-Fi access in our communities. Also, we're trying to figure out how we can make these systems accessible to those who are visually impaired or have hearing impairments. So we're trying to make sure that we're thinking through these and trying to make this as accessible as we can. And we're open to suggestions on that as we go through this material. That's why we want, this is one of the areas for feedback. Layla, can we try the second poll now? Before I start going into the overview of what the general development plan is, how many people have participated in a previous meeting on Plan 2040, on the general development plan? Okay, let's see what we get for results. Okay, about 2/3 have not. Okay, good. This is actually a great thing in that we want to make sure that we're reaching out further and more broadly. So happy to have new folks joining us tonight who haven't participated in the past. Plan 2040 is our tagline here, our name for the county's general development plan. This is the 20-year horizon plan for the county's development and conservation. It's a policy setting document that brings together a lot of topics. We talk about transportation, we talk about education, we talk about affordable housing, we talk about environmental protection. And we bring together all the different departments and programs in the county and tie their goals and policies together within this document. So it's an overarching framework that helps set policy for the county and provides direction. It's policy setting, it's not implementation. As County Executive mentioned before, there's a lot of tools we have to implement this. There's zoning and comprehensive rezoning will follow this process as we get into the region plans. There's the development regulations that, as with the Forest Conservation Ordinance, we've been strengthening. We're also looking to do a review of our development regulations to make sure that they are adhering to these principles that we're putting forth for smart growth and protection of the environment. So there'll be a lot of implementation that goes on over the next 20 years. And a big challenge for us and a challenge for you as community members is to hold us accountable to make sure that we are reporting back on our progress. We'll be including metrics and reporting in this general development plan to make sure that we are providing those updates to the council and to the community. Now, I wanted to reference again that this is based on a lot of public participation that's happened in the past. As the county executive mentioned, we've had over 20 public meetings over the last 3 years. This process began in late 2017. We've gone through administrations, we've now gone through a pandemic, we've had our ups and downs with this, and trying to figure out how best to make sure that we can make this a representative plan that is supported by a broad cross-section of the county as we move forward. Some of the key themes that we've heard we'll go through later on, but the county executive already touched on a few of them. We've heard a lot about people thinking, having the sentiment that the county is overdeveloped, that growth has happened at the expense of the environment and has outpaced our infrastructure to handle it. So we're gonna have a lot of policies in this that talk about the need to improve that alignment, to strengthen our environmental controls, to strengthen our adequate public facilities requirements. We've also heard a lot about affordable housing. So we have policies in here that look to see how we can be more inclusive around our housing around the county, how we can support programs for affordability. And let me share for a moment here one of our next steps as we go into this, which will be our region plans. Just a moment while I share my screen. Okay. In big picture, these are the major elements of Plan 2040. We have a vision statement with key themes. We have several maps, a policy areas map and a planned land use map. We'll dive deeper into those later. We also have these 4 big categories for different goals and policies and implementing strategies, dealing with the natural environment, that deals with our water quality, forests, wetlands, the built environment, that brings together land use, transportation, affordable housing, healthy communities, that speaks to our recreation and parks programs, education, libraries, public health, and public safety. And then our healthy economy section that focuses on our economic revitalization strategies. We also, as I mentioned, have an implementation plan and performance measures. These will dovetail with the open Arundel performance measures that are now up on the county's website as well. Couple sampling of our community engagement. As we said, we've had outreach meetings around the county that have also been complemented with online activities, and now we're transitioning with social distancing to being fully online. The region plans. Many of you may have participated in the past in what we called small area plans, and these were done after the 1997 General Development Plan was adopted. They were completed between 97 and 2004. There were 16 of those small area plans. They were not updated after the 2009 General Development Plan, which was the last General Development Plan that was adopted. We want to go back down into the communities again and do that kind of detailed planning again after adoption of this General Development Plan. 16 plans is a lot to be able to take on, to be able to update. So we've consolidated that down to 9 regions as we go forward. And you can see those on the figure here. And tonight, as you've all received emails about this meeting, we've tried to focus the invitation here to be on regions 1, 2, and 3 that are in the north and west of the county. And we'll have another meeting like this on Wednesday that'll focus on regions 4, 5, and 6, and then on Thursday on 7, 8, and 9. It's difficult trying to create these boundaries on communities. It's one of those things where you kind of feel it when you're in a place, but then when you transition to another place, those lines in between are really hard to pin down. But for the purposes of planning, it's an important exercise to do. These lines were drawn based on input from the Citizen Advisory Committee, the 23-person standing committee that helped guide the development of this plan, as well as through a series of community meetings that we held over the last couple of years. So these lines were kind of organically developed by the communities and helped shape their lines. As we get into the region plans, they will build on the content that was in the small area plans. There was a lot of good thought in there. The principles of smart growth were beginning to be articulated during the time of those plans. We've also heard a lot of challenges with implementation of those plans. So again, performance measures and implementation are going to be key watchwords as we move forward to update these. Zoning is always a topic that comes up around these. Our plan is to address zoning with the region plans. That way we can get down to an appropriate scale to think about these issues and be able to engage those communities that are going to be most affected. And then timing. We have limited staff, limited resources. We can't do all 9 plans at once, even though that might be the most expedient way to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to approach it as 3 plans at a time. So we'll start 3, and then as those finish, we'll do the next set of 3 and the next set of 3. We anticipate they'll take anywhere from 18 to 36 months to complete. We want to make sure that we allow sufficient time for community meetings, for discussion, for debate about these plans. So we want to allow them, we want to have a sense of urgency to completing them, but also give them the time and space that they need to make sure that they're thoroughly reviewed and we get the input that we need. Now, transitioning back to the Plan2040 at home website. This is our interactive tool to try to share the pieces of the general development plan. It's a tool that both provides information that you can learn from and get to see some of the analysis and thinking that's gone on behind as the county staff have worked on this over the last several years. It's also a tool to provide you opportunities to give input. We have several different ways for public input to come in. One of them is SurveyMonkey. Another one is a mapping tool. And Layla, if I could ask you again on the poll, if you could pull up the 3rd poll to see how many folks have used SurveyMonkey before. Are people familiar with that tool? So again, you can click on one of these buttons of no, I've never used it, yes, once or twice, or yes, many times. Okay, good. Okay, so about 2/3 of the folks have used it many times, another quarter about once, and only about 12% have not used it before. These tools are becoming more common. And we're relying on people having a little bit of technology know-how, but we're also having opportunities like tonight to have a tutorial to help show you around the website. So with that, I'd like to ask Desiree to now take over and give us a virtual tour of how this website works.
Right, so this is the Plan2040 at home website. I'm just going to give a brief tour of the website and demonstrate how to navigate and submit comments. So this, you can see at the top here, there's a set of tabs. So each one of these tabs kind of represents an element of Plan2040. So this is like the main navigation way of navigating the website. So I'll go over each of these tabs. So we'll start with the introduction tab. There's a welcome message here from the county executive. You scroll down in the left panel, the purpose of the online open house. There's a video tutorial here that in case basically covers exactly what I'm talking about now if you want to reference in the future or how to provide feedback and input. So this purpose of the Plan2040 shows the planning process and where we are in that planning process is in this plan development phase. You continue down, there's key themes from the community. So this just summarizes sort of what we've heard in all of the community engagement that we've done, and then summarizes some of those key elements and then how we have responded in the plan. So really, I jumped right into this, but I meant to kind of give a high level overview of and kind of reiterate some of the points that Mike discussed, that this is really the way that we're able to promote this social distancing and still get feedback from you. So this website's going to be available from August 5th until September 10th. You can access it anytime of the day, so you don't have to come to a specific public meeting. You can kind of come on whenever you want, provide input. After the open house period closes, comments will be evaluated for inclusion in the full draft plan document. And then that will go back out to the public for public comment for 30 days. And there will be a series of formal meetings in which ultimately the county council and the county planning advisory board will approve. So let's see, where am I? We will go back to the vision and themes tab here. So the vision is really the guiding light for how the general development plan, the basis for the general development plan. So I'll go ahead and read. This vision statement is really the guiding light for the plan, and was, let's see, where am I? So this is the vision statement. It's by embracing its rich Chesapeake culture and heritage, invaluable ecosystems and emerging opportunities, Anne Arundel County embodies the best of both the past and future, providing its residents a place where all are proud to live, work, learn, and play. So if you scroll down, you can see some of these themes. And this was developed by the Citizen Advisory Committee with input from the community in part of this engagement process. So some of these themes are resilient and sustainable communities, new and improved infrastructure. I'm just scrolling down here. Strategic economic growth and redevelopment, community character, and inclusive, equitable, and responsive government.
And we'll just be giving you an overview of the website. You can take the time after this to be able to read these in more detail and provide us feedback.
Right, okay. So the next tab we have is the Goals Survey tab. Bear with me while it loads here. So really the meat and potatoes, the essence of Plan 2040 are the goals, policies, and implementing strategies, which we have organized into 4 categories. So the first being the natural environment, which addresses forests, streams, shorelines, and water quality. The built environment, which addresses land use, housing, transportation, cultural and historic resources, and climate resiliency. Healthy communities, which involves public services, schools, libraries, public health, and healthy economy, which includes efforts to attract and retain, expand businesses. So in total, there are over 400 individual goals, policies, and implementing strategies. If you would like to see all of those, there are 400. So it's we have them all in this. If you scroll down in the left panel here, there's a link here. If you click, will open up to all of those goals, policies, and strategies. So definitely give some time to go through all of those. This is really the heart of the Plan 2040 document. So once you have reviewed those goals, policies, and strategies, you can come back. And if you really just want more of a high level overview, you can also just click on each of these tabs here on the left. We have them broken out into 4 categories. So I'm looking at the natural environment. I'm going to scroll down. You can see some of the focuses, or really each of the goals here. And if you scroll down, there's some of the challenges and opportunities that were identified as part of the community engagement process. And scroll down to, and hit this explore button. And this will open up the survey here so that you can rate how you think these goals, or how you, if you strongly support, or do not support these goals as pertains to the natural environment. You can scroll down, and there's also a general comment box. You can provide any general comments on the draft goals for the specific topic. And again, we have one for each of the elements here, healthy community, healthy economy, and built environment. Okay, so the next 3 tabs are a series of maps, and these focus on the plan for future development and conservation in the county. So just note that when you're clicking on these tabs, it may take a moment to load, depending on your internet connection.
And while this website is usable on an iPhone or a mobile phone, because of the maps, they become really hard to read on a small device. So I recommend accessing this on an iPad or a laptop computer, something that has a little bit larger screen.
There you go. I'm going to close this legend for now so we can see a little bit better here. Let's zoom in. Okay, so this first map is the development policy area map. And this is really provides a conceptual high-level framework for used to inform the planned land use. So the categories on this map identify areas where we want to preserve rural and agricultural lands, peninsulas that require special consideration of environmental resources and infrastructure constraints, identifies major employment centers, such as the town centers of Parole, Odenton, and Glen Burnie, where we want to focus development and redevelopment, and the primarily residential neighborhoods that we want to preserve.
Yeah, and we use a lot of maps in planning and zoning, and I appreciate this can be confusing at times for the public when you try to engage in these things. In the general development plan, we have this development policy areas map and then the planned land use map. You're also all very familiar probably with the zoning map. And these 3 kind of link together and work together, and they allow us to think about the county and the development patterns at 3 different scales. The development policy areas, you can see, this is pretty broad brush, right? We have just a couple of categories. And then as we get to the planned land use map, we have more detail as we break down into different types of land use. But both the development policy areas and the planned land use map are policy setting maps. The zoning map actually has a regulatory function, but the zoning map it needs to be consistent with the planned land use map. So there's a strong policy setting connection there. A couple important things about this map to note for the regions that we're talking about tonight. You can see that the critical economic areas, they're kind of that purplish color, include BWI Airport and Fort Meade area. You could see the town center, Odenton there. And then there's these little red areas that have these horizontal black slashes through them. Those are village centers. And these are to recognize that across the county, we have our small kind of main streets, our crossroad communities. So to recognize those as being special places, we have those identified as well.
Okay, so if you would like to provide comments on the development policy areas map, there's a little link here. We'll take you to a survey here with just a general comment box. So the second map here is the resource sensitive policy area map. Let me give it a minute to load here. So this map, it compiles information on natural resources. So this includes stuff like wetlands, streams, floodplains, along with cultural and historic resources, scenic roads, and designated historic sites. These features are all regulated by a set of local, state, and federal laws. So this map is intended just to be used for planning purposes only, and a guide for future development. It doesn't, if we have specific development projects, when they come in and are reviewed, then there are specific studies that will go in and confirm that wetlands are present or floodplains are present, et cetera. So just note that this map may take a moment to load just because it's pulling a lot of data here.
This is when you might want to spend some time exploring. There's a lot of information here that we've compiled into this, these multiple data sources. Some of them you need to zoom in to be able to see them because they're so detailed. But you'll note some key features in there, like the Jabez subwatershed. That's a special area for protection where the Severn Run natural area is, as well as historic areas like you saw as you zoomed out a little more there around Fort Meade and Jessup, where we have a lot of historic resources. An important thing to note too on the historical layers, that those are intentionally very large, broad shapes. When we provide information to the public about historic and archaeological sites, we don't want to pinpoint exactly where they are for, to make sure that we're protecting them and not accidentally inviting vandalism or looting or anything of them. So those historic resources are intentionally kind of broadly laid out in this figure.
Okay, so let's see, I think that covers the resource sensitive policy area map. So we can move on to the planned land use map. So this tool was created in an effort to provide transparency and clarity and basically compare what is being proposed in Plan 2040, which is the map on the left, with what was previously in the 2009 plan land use map. So I know it looks like you're looking at one map right now, but there's actually a slider in the middle here. I'm gonna zoom out. So this slider allows you to see, again, what's on the left is the Plan 2040 map, and on the right is the 2009. So you can kind of pan around, zoom in to, you know, probably where you live is what you're interested in. You can also search for an address here. I'll take you directly to the location. And you can view over here are the land use types. So we have, you know, anything from low density residential, rural, commercial, mixed use. We have our town centers in purple here. And if you are interested in seeing more or learning more about how this planned land use map was created and developed, this briefing paper here on the left-hand side, you can scroll down, there's a link here to a briefing paper that describes really the methodology and principles behind how the planned land use map was developed. If you have questions about that, refer to that, and there's a lot of information there. So I think with that, we wanted to show just some, Mike, I'll hand it to you to just show.
Yeah, so Desiree, if you can zoom out a little bit and kind of look at the area, you can see north of BWI, for example. We've had several different types of changes from the 2009 Plan Land Use Map to the Plan 2040 Land Use Map. Some of them are consistency changes. You know, as we get better tools, better data to be able to more accurately map what's actually on the ground, we've gone through to make sure that these colored areas that you see align more closely with parcels boundaries and also with more closely with what's actually on the ground and what's intended. So for example, if you can scroll back and forth over that kind of yellowish area north of BWI, you see that in the 2009 on the right, it was kind of an orange, which meant that it was a medium density residential area. And we've reduced that down to a low medium to reflect the actual built densities in those areas and to reflect community concerns we've heard about infill development so that this doesn't downzone property, but it limits the ability for property to be upzoned in the future by changing that land use category from a medium to a low medium density. So that way, future as new housing gets built in on vacant lots, or maybe some homes get renovated or replaced, that they are in character with the surrounding areas. So that's been, there were a number of consistency changes that reflect that around the county. And we'll talk in the next map about some property changes that are specific.
So we'll go to this comment on draft.
And it's important to remember that as we look at these maps, that the difference between land use and zoning, again. So these categories, for those who are not really following land use and really getting into this stuff, they'll sound oddly familiar to the zoning categories. And so people sometimes think, well, hey, wait, the zoning category is different when I look at a zoning map than what's shown on this map on this website. And that's the distinction between the land use and the zoning. And again, the land use is a broader category that's policy setting. The zoning categories are typically more detailed, and they have a regulatory context with specific standards around them that are.
Okay, so this tab is where you will comment on the planned land use map. So this provides both an opportunity to provide general comments, which you can do by scrolling down on the left-hand side here. This will take you to a general survey. But earlier on in this overall in this planning process, property owners were given the chance to apply for changes to their personal property land use designation. After that application window closed, we opened the applications up to the community and welcomed feedback on what had been requested. So during that process, we received over 1,000 comments. So we took all this information, what was being requested and why, what the general public had to say about it. And then as planners, as staff, we made recommendations as to what should be ultimately included in Plan 2040 in the land use plan. So with all of that done, we wanted to compile that information and put it back out to the public to view all together. So what you're looking at here is the Plan 2040 proposed land use map. That's what we're proposing now, overlaid with these land use change applications. And they'll be noted here on the side, LUCA, land use change application, and numbered. So as you zoom in or out of the map, it will limit the land use change applications to that extent you're viewing. We also had- Can
I comment on that really quick? We asked a question when the staff showed us this about whether changes were likely to get made or could get made at this point based on people's comments. And so the decisions that the staff made were based on all of the basic principles and the larger area designations. There's information that the staff doesn't have about your neighborhood. So when you go in and you comment and you think they got it wrong, be specific, and you might have information that they weren't aware of, and that will potentially make a change in how it ends up being designated, right?
Thank you, County Executive.
Yep. So I think we wanted to dive in a little bit and show some examples here of.
Yeah, before we do that, Desiree, can you open up the general survey?
Sure.
So this is another SurveyMonkey tool that you can use to click and kind of, we want to be able to allow the public to both comment on this map in general and then dig into these specific properties where specific changes have been proposed. So there's a series, again, of questions that you can rate on your opinions on some of these principles behind the map, like protection of rural areas, focusing growth in targeted areas where there's infrastructure to support it. And then, do you think this land use map achieves those kind of smart growth principles? And then a space for open-ended comment for you to write in whatever your thoughts are. So there you can comment about the land use map in general in this space, and then we can go back to the specific comments on individual properties. So we'll show you a couple. As Desiree mentioned, I'd expect that community members will zoom into your neighborhood, see what pops up on this map, and then we'll show you how you can actually comment on that specifically. We're going to go ahead and pick a couple that we've, as examples. You can scroll down to LUCA 65. So this list is another tool to be able to comment, to navigate with if you know the application number. We're zooming out a little bit to see that this property is near Route 2 and the 695 Beltway. And over on the right-hand side, you get a summary of what this parcel's application was about. And again, the LUCA is a land use change application. So a property owner submitted this application to the county to ask for a change in their planned land use designation. You can see that that in the Plan 2040 map, they were proposing that it be changed to commercial. And its current designation is mixed density residential, high density residential, and commercial. So it's a mix of several. And this often happens as I mentioned before, sometimes there's mapping errors that, with imprecise software years ago, the lines didn't specifically match up to a parcel boundary line. So sometimes properties get multiple. Sometimes that was intentionally done to split the uses of a property. And sometimes it changes from just uses and assembly of property over time. In this case, the property is currently being used for small business, auto services, truck servicing, and they want to consolidate that to all be commercial. And based on the commercial uses that are similar in that type and scale in this area, the existing use and the county staff are supporting this change to be commercial. And so as you scroll down in that box on the right, you can click on these hyperlinks that show both the application as well as a summary of the staff analysis. So you can dig in as deep as you want on these things and see exactly what did the property owner or their representative request, and then how did staff analyze it and how did they come to a conclusion. So we looked at a number of criteria as I kind of just walked through of what's the existing zoning, what's the existing use, what are the surrounding uses, is this area, has it been transitioning over time, how does it relate to other aspects of county planning and development, like the sewer service areas. So bringing these multiple factors together, we come to a staff recommendation. And of course, we want your opinion on that. Also in that staff report, it includes the summary of public input we got when we went out in the spring and had a website where people could click on these parcels and let us know from the public whether they supported the application or not and what their concerns were. So that's also summarized in that data sheet. Now, if you click on the blue icon there, the little comment button, this gives you an opportunity again to comment on whether do you agree or not with what the staff is recommending for Plan 2040. So yes, no, or neutral. And then if you disagree, what do you think would be a better planned land use designation? And this is a drop-down menu that shows all the options across the map of what what it could be. Then we also give you two options for explaining your rationale, the reason behind your opinion. We give you two drop-down menu boxes and for giving your primary and secondary reason. And we made these drop-down menus to make them easy for you to use and also more efficient for us as the staff level to be able to analyze. And these options didn't come from nowhere. The options from these drop-down menus came from the analysis that we did of the comments that we got back in the spring. We counted up the common topics or themes that came out of comments and identified the most common themes and then put those into this drop-down menu. You also do have the opportunity just to write an open-ended comment. We ask that it's character limited, so about 255 characters. So we ask that you be concise, to the point, and as the county executive mentioned earlier, the most effective thing for us is to be able to point out anything that you think we missed. If you look at our summary report and you say, wait, you think it's this kind of use, it's clearly something else. Or you said it's compatible with this neighborhood, wait, if you looked across the street, you would see something else. We also ask you to put your name and email address in there. And we do that so that way we can make sure that we're getting people's contact information. So that way we can make sure that we can keep you up to date in the loop on the process as it moves forward. I'll also note that in addition to these LUCAs, there are SR numbers, and these are staff recommended changes. So in addition to the applications that came in from property owners, the staff did a comprehensive analysis looking across the entire county, 250,000 plus parcels, and looking for these issues like inconsistencies. Where does the planned land use not align with zoning? Where do the property boundaries not line up? Was there a plan unit development that maybe wasn't tracked right in our system, so it doesn't have the appropriate land use designation? And then there are some that just thought, as times have changed, these are opportunities for us to be able to make changes, to be able to promote this kind of smart growth we want to see in the future. So for example, if you can click on SR13, you might need to zoom out a little bit to get to it. This one's over by Route 100 and the Howard County line. It's located near the Dorsey Mark station. And we looked at these light rail stations and thought about the land use that'd be most appropriate to try to encourage development around the rail stations for places to work and live, to try to be able to promote that kind of walkable, compact growth where we can try to get people to have the rail be a more viable commuting option than getting in your car. So across these areas where there was kind of the space, the land available to be able to accommodate it, and where it was compatible with the surrounding development patterns, in a number of these, we've recommended these be changed to a mixed use zone, or land use, I should say. Even I make the mistake between zoning and land use sometimes, but the mixed use land use. And you can see that in this, you get the same kind of pop-up window that gives you the summary information of the proposed land use, the current, and the staff justification. You can also click on the data sheet to get a summary of what the analysis was, and then click on the blue button to make a comment and give us your feedback.
Michael, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing question and answer yet, but I couldn't help. Could you give us the numbers? I know that I saw them somewhere. How many applications you got for changes, and of those, how many you recommended that they be changed, or recommended that they not, or haven't decided?
Yeah.
Do you have that?
I do. Just a moment as I pull that up.
And while you're doing that, I introduced some elected officials who are on this call, and I've been told that there are a couple more that are with us. Senator Pam Beidle and Delegate Mike Rogers, both representing these areas, are with us. So thank you for joining us, guys.
Great, thank you. So yeah, so the county received 189 of the land use change applications. Now, a few of them were withdrawn, so 182 were evaluated. And overall, there were 58 that staff supported the requested change, 58 that we did not support. And then there are some that are in the middle, where some of them are requesting a land use basically just to stay the same. And there were 14 of those that we supported. There were some that were just reconciliation, making sure that the land use designation aligned with a parcel boundary line. And there were 12 of those that we supported. There's also a number, actually 33, that we're saying this needs more discussion and deliberation in the region plans. And a lot of those focus on some of our major highway corridors, places that we know where there's a lot of concerns about congestion, the type of development that's going in. We felt those needed further conversation with those communities to be able to make a decision on those. And there's approximately 60 of the staff recommended changes. Thanks. So overall, we've got multiple ways that you can comment on this, and we appreciate there's a lot of information to dig into here. So again, the site is open until September 10. So you have a lot of time to be able to look into this and to dig as deep as you want, or kind of fly at the high level and just comment on the goals and comment on the general land use map. It's your choice. It's choose your own adventure. But we appreciate the time that people do put into this. And after we get your comments back, we'll be synthesizing them and creating a summary report and feedback. You can also see actually on that, on the parcel specific comments, when you submit a comment, you'll see a summary of the comments that were given on that property before you as well. It won't have your name attached, so don't worry about that, but you'll be able to see how many other community members have commented on that and what their opinions were. So yeah, as we do our last step here of the thank you, the next steps of this, after we have this, after this goes, public comment period goes through September 10, we'll take the comments together, we'll review everything, and then we'll come out with a full draft plan that'll look more like what you're used to seeing in a draft plan. It'll be a document that will then be available for 30 days of review. And that document will be taken in front of the Planning Advisory Board. They'll have public meetings on it. And after the Planning Advisory Board moves it forward, it'll then go to County Council. The target is to get it in front of Council, just introduced by the end of the year, that we'll have public hearings going into the beginning of 2021. So with that covers the site. We appreciate everyone's patience and thoughts on this. And yeah, we answered some of the questions that came in the chat as we were going through, but Layla, can you let us know if there's any other questions?
Yes, just a reminder, if anyone has a question, I know there's one person that raised their hand, just click on the hand raise and then I will call your name. You will unmute yourself and then you have a minute to ask your question. There is somebody who is asking for the link for where they can make the comment. If you could just drop that in the chat box as well.
Okay.
And is there any other question? Oh, Miss Laura Brown, you had a question. Would you mind unmuting yourself so you may ask it? Ms. Brown, do you mind unmuting yourself? All right, while we're waiting for her to unmute herself, I will ask Mr. Richard Campbell to unmute himself.
Yes, I have two questions. One on the plan use map. I noticed that when I zoomed in on the left map, the right map did not sync with that. So you have to position the geographic area you're looking at on both of the maps?
I think Desiree can demonstrate this. Sometimes it just takes a moment for the map to respond, but they are designed to be able to sync up. So, but what you're seeing is a continuation of the map. So that slider, that's why it looks like one cohesive long map.
Right.
And you move the slider back and forth, and it will change from the 2040 map on the left to the 2009 map on the right. So you can see like that intersection is a nice way to look at that. You can see that the intersection is shown there, and it stays in the same place as you slide the slider back and forth. But the map on the left is the proposed 2040, and on the right is the current.
Yeah, on the right is current, left is, but it's not showing. I'm live on the web, and when I take an area and zoom in on it, the right map doesn't zoom to the same area. So it's all one map is what you're saying. So you actually have to go over and find the area on the, I mean, even the example you're showing right now, you're seeing the town center and Odenton Town Center, but on the left, but you're not seeing the Odenton Town Center on the right.
Right.
Right. Again, it's one continuous, you're looking at one continuous view of it from left to right. And then the slider. So if you want to look at Odenton Town Center and kind of compare 2040 to 2009, you put it in a place like that and then move the slider left and right.
You moved it over top. Okay. The other question I have is in the comment on the draft plan use. I'm live on the website as well, but I could not get the land use categories display on the map. And I noticed that when you were showing them, you were actually showing the land use categories, numbers actually showing on the map itself. And I zoomed in quite a bit and still didn't see any.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the legend populates on this map, does it, Mike? Or I think
if you scroll down on the left, so in the left-hand panel, there's a legend. If you scroll down, or I thought it was there. We can make sure that it shows up there. And then
I'm talking about on the individual properties, it showed the actual land use classification.
Yeah, it'll show up in the window on the right.
Okay. Right. So how did you get that to happen?
So when she zooms in, if you just click on, say, SR15 there.
Oh, so you have to select a land use. You have to select the category first.
Yeah, you have to select one of the applications for the information to pop up.
Oh, right? Okay.
And you can select it from the menu on the right, or you can select it just by clicking on it on the map.
Well, does it only display that particular selection, or do you have to select all of them to be able to see all of them?
It just does one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
It narrows down your options based on the extent of the map. It narrows down the options. So as I zoom out, more show up here.
Okay.
Good.
Is there a legend to this? So, for instance, the green areas, I'm assuming that they're open space, but there's no legend on the map. The red and what did the different colors represent?
Yeah, the legend is on the plan land use map tab to the left, and we'll see if we can get it added to that tab on the right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about the comment on the.
Yeah, it's the same map on the two tabs. They both show the planned 2040 land use map. So the map on
Right.
the left here is the same as what you see on the comment on draft land use map
Right.
tab. And then here's your legend on the left there.
Okay.
Thank you for exploring it and pointing out that, that legend issue. We'll see if we can correct that. Make it easier to find and use.
Ms. Laura Brown, can you please unmute yourself? You raised your hand. Ms. Brown? All right. There's Mr. Campbell. That's a question. Oh, it's the same one. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I have a different question. I noticed when I got the invitation that it was addressed to me, and I didn't realize that after going through this. Is there any problem with me broadcasting this to the entire Improvement Association members of 552 so that at least Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday they may be able to opt in?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It will be, Mr. Campbell, we will be posting it on YouTube at a later date, so you can share that with your community afterwards.
Okay, but there's no, if I just share with them, if they want to log in themselves and going, this is an open meeting for anybody, correct?
Yes.
This webinar. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
please, yeah,
Okay.
spread the word.
Yeah, it was unclear. I thought it was just by invitation only. And so I did not, in fact, even when I shared it with my secretary with the Improvement Association, I asked whether or not, I didn't get a response, but I asked whether or not it was okay to do that. But now I see that it is. So I will get something out tonight to the community as a whole and encourage them to join in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week.
Yeah, and you know, as we targeted invitations for this, as you said, you got a lot of personal invitations sent out to leaders of community associations, homeowner associations, local organizations, and we want to provide this training opportunity for you as liaisons to your community to give you a little bit of extra hands-on demonstration of how this tool works. But we're absolutely hoping that you will contact your neighbors and colleagues, and coworkers and friends, and let them know that this opportunity is out there for them to participate. The more comments we can get, the more representative this can be of the whole county.
I believe there was one question in the chat that's asked, is it possible to search the LUCAs by key phrases?
Yeah, that's a great idea. There are some constraints with this technology, only certain ways that we can present and search certain things. So at this point, no, we can't do that. So I think, again, as a community member, I'd recommend just zooming and exploring around your neighborhood. You can comment on any property across the county, but that's going to be the best way, is just to visually kind of explore with the map.
Thank you. And I believe the Brown family, if you could unmute yourself, you just click at the top of your screen, the 3 buttons. Are you able to speak now?
For Julius Brown?
Yes, please, Mr. Brown.
In all your planning, it would be helpful if your maps would show locations of fire stations, of hospitals, things that people use. Also, probably better promotion of public transportation activities. I know that won't work right now with the COVIDs, but as a citizen of the county, that would be helpful to me.
Thank you. That's an excellent comment. I appreciate that. We'll see what we can do to improve that. We are limited by these technologies about putting in, the more information we put on the map, the more complex the system gets, and some of these maps just only have limited function, right? Because we're trying to build some different functions in them to allow them to be viewed and commented on different ways. But certainly as we go forward into the plan document itself, we'll be certain to put those kind of community landmarks onto maps to make sure that those are visible to help people orient. And absolutely, there's a lot of policy language and goal language around public transportation in the document as well. So hopefully as you go through the goals survey piece, especially the built environment section, look for the transportation and land use connections around public transportation.
All right, we have one more question from Ms. Gina Stewart. She asked, can business owners and commercial developers comment if they have businesses or properties in the county? They may or may not be residents, but they have interest in the county. Are they able to comment?
Yes, they would be able to comment. We are able to tell through some of these comment functions. We ask for people's zip codes, some information to be able to understand where people are coming from. So we do get a little bit of background information about who the commenters are. So you know, we're able to kind of slice and dice and look at comments from different sectors of different both geographies and demographics of people to be able to make sure that we can kind of glean nuanced perspectives that different types of stakeholders have.
I don't see any more hands raised. If anyone else would like to raise their hand, we can call on you to ask your question. No? Well, it seems like you did a very thorough presentation.
Thank you. And thank you all for making the time. Again, I really appreciate it. This is a lot of material to go through on this website. So please take your time, explore it. On the first page there, on the introduction tab, there is a email address. If you have any questions or issues with it, it's plan2040@aacounty.org. Please email us if you have any challenges or questions about the site. Otherwise, please explore, use it, share it with your friends.
Oh, there's just one last question from a Mr. Campbell. Do you mind answering that before we log off?
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Campbell?
It would be, I think, more beneficial on the plan use map if the two maps, you had a map showing the existing, and then over on the right, you would see the previous, so you could readily see the comparison. Now what happens is that you have to remember what you were looking at before, roll the map over to the right, and it makes it difficult. It would have been better if you had two different maps both syncing with one another so you could see the before and the after. And comparison. Having a map on one side and a map on the other side, it shows the comparison. As it stands right now, you have to scroll the left map into the right map to see what it was before, or vice versa. But you lose the map, so you can't actually see a one-to-one comparison between the before and after. Am I right?
Okay.
Thank
you for the comment.
What I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes.
Need two computers, two screens. I just want to compliment the staff for putting this together, and it's so far and above what the residents had for the 2009 General Development Plan, and it's the direction we're going. I think one of the things that I've talked a lot about is how difficult it is when there's an application for a subdivision in this county for a resident to be able to get the information online, where it's coming from, what stage of the review it's in, when the application is going to be considered, and we have a contract to do this thing called the Land Use Navigator, and it's taking a lot longer than any of us would like it to take to get all of land use applications and all of this work online. It's easier for the people who are filing the application, and it's easier for the residents who are trying to have an influence. And we're getting there. It's just, it's very slow, but the staff threw this together in a very short amount of time just for the GDP. And it's, thank you so much for doing this.
Our pleasure. Happy to help.
So we'll see. You can join us again on Wednesday night and Thursday night if you haven't gotten enough. We'll see you then. Is that it?